Hello and welcome. This is a discourse on the book Christ in You, and we will be referencing lesson 2. This is the second lesson of part 3, and it starts on page 165. My name is Angel Christchild, and I'll be joined by my friend today, and we will be working with similarities and quotes from A Course in Miracles and near-death experience, and of course, the Holy Bible. So welcome, friend.
Welcome. Yeah, we're moving forward here and going on to the second lesson called Thou in Me.
Right, thou and me.
Keep in mind the previous chapter, and you'll be led back to it and find that all your life is going to teach you that the God-man, Christ, is all in all. This truth has to be made one with the outermost of creation. Just as a leaf learns by drawing from its source its oneness more than unity with the tree. There is a condition of consciousness in everything that lives. The real you knows everything about itself, but the leaf or seeming unit can only learn slowly by its life of dependence and unfoldment, its own place and meaning.
So yeah, that's really good stuff. And then it says every atom contains the whole. So I just wanted to share something from A Course in Miracles with us. It says, when you perceive yourself without deceit, you will accept the real world in place of the false one that we have made. And then your Father will lean down to you and take the last step for you by raising you unto himself. And that's from the text, chapter 11, God or the Ego. And the section's called The Problem and the Answer. It's kind of interesting the way they put it too. The leaf or the seeming unit. So we seem to be separate from the tree, but we're actually not separated from the tree at all. And we're all part of it. And then every atom contains the whole of this world. So, I've heard that said before too, but this is also, remember, it comes from the early 1800s, which is pretty amazing science for that time period.
Yeah, that's great analogies too. He likes to use the seed analogy, and he likes to use those nature analogies. And
yeah, they're very relatable.
Yeah, he likes to say, look to nature. That is a reflection of consciousness expanding within yourself.
Indeed.
So every atom contains the whole, and the whole of God is in the blade of grass. So try to banish the thought of distance or space and know that what you see contains within it its true life. The thought is within every expression. What do you think he means by that? The thought is within the expression.
Well, I think it goes back to the beginning of the sentence here, and it says, the thought of distance or space. So he often talks about distance or space being false, which of course, A Course in Miracles does as well. It's part of the illusion.
Mm-hmm.
So in the true life, there is no time or space or distance. And the thought is within every expression. The true thought, I think, of the true life would be in every expression.
So we'll open our eyes to see the truth. The truth is not huge distance, space, separation. So when we open our eyes and
Exactly.
open up to the fact that we have Christ within us. And so then we can see the tree with new, fresh eyes and think to ourselves, oh, it's a reflection of us and our expansion and growth, or the blossoming of a flower, and say, oh, that's like us as a seed that has grown through the soil and is blossoming and opening to the light of the sun.
Yeah. It's kind of like being able to see the tree and see the forest, you know, instead of just one tree, or see the whole tree and be part of the one leaf, but still be able to get the perspective to be able to see the whole tree. Or if you can't see it, at least to know that there is a tree.
Mm.
Okay.
All right. So your first and lowest consciousness of life was movement. Your highest is love. The seed thought is always hidden within every phase of life through which you merge. It moves, quickens, and brings forth seed, parentheses, thought. This is true of all creation. Your first movement was in secret, yea, in the lowest parts of the earth. There's a Bible verse here around the word was in secret. Psalms 134:15. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in the secret place, when I was woven together in the depths of the earth.
That's so mysterious.
Interesting. Maybe it's like our body, our life is a extension of a thought of God expanding and learning through his leaves, or learning through the people that live.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if God learns, but I think God experiences.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
It's part of the mystery of why we were even created, but that shall remain a mystery until we return to our real home. I believe, anyway.
Oh, he's got more symbolic stuff to relate to us here.
Uh-huh.
In the book, it says, this is symbolized in every physical birth. The whole of creation is manifest to the seer. The truths of life are simple and open. I do not wish to cause you vain speculation, but we desire to be of real practical use to you at the stage of unfoldment where you are now. However low, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Okay. However low on the scale of evolution, that is, spiritual evolution, a soul is, it can be perfect of its kind and should be free from sin, sickness, and death.
Now, this is a challenge. So many of us are suffering sickness and death. In fact, I'm not feeling well myself right now. And I'm going through a really big change because I'm challenging the grief and sorrow of the crucifixion. Finally coming to terms with that. So, and it says here, we should be free from sickness and death. And I want to share something from Course in Miracles too. Illusions can only illusions carry only guilt and suffering, sickness and death to their believers. And that comes from chapter 22, Salvation in the Holy Relationship, section 2, Your Brother's Sinlessness. So only in illusions can we express sickness and death. There isn't sickness and death or fear or tears in heaven. So it makes so much sense that we should be free from sickness and death as we evolve and let go of our illusions, which has certainly been my experience. And right now I'm really coming up head to head with a really big illusion that I've been ruled by for most of my life. So it's a really interesting process, difficult, but hopefully it will be overcome for the good. The author says earlier in his book that it's our job to have dominion over our bodies and to have perfect health, to demonstrate that we are spiritual beings, realized spiritual beings. And if we don't realize this in this lifetime, being freed from sickness and death, we have to come back and try to do it again. I'm kind of hoping to do it this time around.
So this is good to have these realizations and to learn this type of material, because what you referred to earlier sounds like when we get it and we understand it, there's like a helping hand that's reached out to us, and God kind of like helps us step up through the rest of the way, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So we don't have to feel like we're alone in this, kind of like we're have a lot of support from Spirit.
Good.
Well, the book says this this is our glorious message for you. We
Indeed.
would have you know yourselves. Give back to the cause.
Mhm.
And then continuing here on the next page, it says, why are people suffering and sinful? Because they willingly choose to dwell in a divided consciousness of good and evil.
Well, that's also important to A Course in Miracles. Oh, could you just finish the next sentence? Because I wanted to include that too.
Yes. Whoever for even a second has seen that there is no evil has passed from death to life.
So knowing that evil has no place in heaven or a real home, it only exists here in the illusion. So A Course in Miracles says, the veil of ignorance is drawn across the evil and the good and must be passed that both may disappear so that perception finds no hiding place. And that's from chapter 31, close to the end of the book. The final vision, recognizing the spirit. So eventually evil and good will disappear. There won't be any yin or yang. There won't be any good and evil. There'll be, well, who knows what there'll be. It's a mystery.
Well, that's like a Garden of Eden before the fall, right?
Yes.
Before the separation.
So the Bible says. Is there a Bible verse you want to share here?
There is one around. There is no evil. Isaiah 33:15. Those who walk righteously and speak what is right will reject gain from extortion and keep their hands from accepting bribes, who stop their ears from plots of murder and shut their eyes against contemplating evil. They are the ones who will dwell on the heights, whose refuge will be the mountain fortress. Their bread will be supplied, and water will not fail them.
That's very hopeful, isn't it?
Yeah, that is like, it's kind of like a little bit of a reshaping of this thought of what is life. He likes to refer to what is the true life, what is real
Yeah.
truth, and he says, look within yourself and the inner renewal which comes from spirit, and see that, and if you know that that's happening, then allow that to happen and foster that relationship with Jesus and Christ, and talk about saying the Lord's Prayer.
Yeah, absolutely critical. I've been using the Lord's Prayer lately a lot to quiet my mind. It seems to help quite a bit.
Yeah, I try to say it every day myself.
Ah, good. Although I always say, and leave us not in temptation, instead of lead us not into temptation. But that's me. I can't see God leading us into temptation. Anyway, I don't want to get into an argument about that.
Well, he has entered the heaven of heavens. He has seen God. The fall is a thing of the present. It is a false understanding.
So the fall is not a past event. We're still falling because we don't understand that we live in an illusion.
Interesting way to put it. Yeah. So we can choose to fall, or we can choose not to fall.
Or we can choose life and truth. Right.
In the present. I like that in the present, like we have that
Yeah.
power. We're empowered. So why have we tolerated this consciousness, seeing that God cannot fail? The real you has never tolerated it. There is only one consciousness really. It is deep within yourself all the time.
Yeah.
It
So
always has been.
I'm sorry, I meant to interrupt there. Wanted to share this with you. The ego depends solely on your willingness to tolerate it. If you are willing to look upon your grandeur, you cannot despair, and therefore you cannot want the ego. Your grandeur is God's answer to the ego because it is true. The grandeur is true. And that's from the text, chapter 9, acceptance of the atonement, grandeur versus grandiosity. So we are tolerating our egos and making ourselves very small.
That's interesting. So we're like an elephant trying to stuff ourselves into a shoebox, maybe.
Yeah, good one. That's a great analogy. I'd agree with that.
Well, there's only one consciousness, really. It is deep within yourself all the time. It always has been, and now is around you. And because of it and its livingness, you are shaking off the shadow of ignorance, a condition of growth, and rising into pure being. In this great process, you will know that sin and ignorance are less than the morning mists now being dispelled by the inner sun, the fire of the love life to become aware while in the shadow of the reality of this one true life is the solution of everything. For with this true understanding, you must know that all is well forever.
That's very reassuring.
Trying to think of an analogy, like maybe going through a tunnel and driving through, and it's really dark in the middle of the tunnel, but then you know that you're headed towards a bright light at the end of the tunnel, right?
Yes.
So even though you're in this dark tunnel, you're not afraid or worried.
Good. It makes a lot of sense too when you think about near-death experience and the tunnel that people experience and going into the light. Okay.
That you are one with this movement means that you are emerging into fullness and freedom. See how it is lifting the whole race. We see its potent healing power everywhere. We rejoice with you.
So there's something I want to share with you about that too, friend. It's A Course in Miracles. Could you but realize for a single instant the power of healing that the reflection of God shining in you can bring to all the world? You could not wait to make a mirror of your mind clean, to receive the images of holiness that heals the world. And that's from chapter 14, Teaching for Truth, Reflection of Holiness. So if we could just grasp for a moment the power of the healing that's at our fingertips, that's shining on us, that we can bring to the world. But we have to clean up our mind and stop believing in the illusion. It's a struggle. And for me right now, the struggle is to let go of the crucifixion and the guilt and the shame and the transfixion and the violence, and instead embrace the resurrection, which is the message of the crucifixion. That is the message.
Mm-hmm. I agree that's where the uplifting focus of it should be.
But yet the whole world mourns on Good Friday. We're still mourning something we should be celebrating and being grateful for, friend. We should be grateful and rejoicing, not mourning and, sad and crying at the foot of the cross, which I did this Easter again. I watched the movie and I thought, I'm not going to watch the crucifixion, but I did it. And then I got hit with an illness that's been very strong illness. And then when I started to do my testing to find out the origin of the emotions, I found it was all these emotions buried about the crucifixion that I've lived my whole life. And what that does is it keeps your ego in control of you and your emotions, and it makes the illusion real.
You need a new teaching to relearn how to uplift ourselves and everyone with the story. I think the true story, like you said, is the amazing resurrection and the transcendence of death by just stepping into this new life of this the real life, right? The real heaven.
Well, exactly. Anything else makes no sense. Anything else is, I'm going to say it's an insult to Christ and his gift to us.
Yeah.
A Course in Miracles teaches that there was no sacrifice. When the crucifixion happened, there was no sacrifice. That's a bit of a showstopper, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. That's like it's like one of those commercials that's like famous where it's like everybody was like kind of like just like sitting in these rows. It's like a famous IT commercial,
Uh-huh.
and somebody comes along and throws a big sledgehammer into the screen, and the screen becomes really bright, and everybody sitting in the rows looking all pale is like their mouths wide open, like, oh, they realize something new. I forget what the commercial was about. I think it was some technology breakthrough or something.
Huh. Interesting.
But so see how it is lifting the whole race. We see its potent healing power everywhere. We rejoice with you. You are entering into the kingdom of life and light. Death and sin are conquered now and forever. So I think that was really the message of the crucifixion, is that death was not to be feared, and there's no separation from, there's no separation. Sin could be called separation because Jesus just transcended and resurrected to heaven, right? So, and then showed himself to his disciples that.
Well, it's an interesting way to look at it. And I'm just looking at the lessons of love in chapter 6, of Course in Miracles. And it's the message of the crucifixion. We were talking about that earlier this week. And it says, the message of the crucifixion is perfectly clear. Teach only love, for that is what you are. And it goes on to say, if you are interpreting the crucifixion in any other way, you are using it as a weapon for assault, rather than as a call for peace for which it was intended.
Hmm.
And it's interesting because if you read this, you know that it's true that a lot of hatred and anger has been directed at the Jewish people, for instance, because of their supposed part in the crucifixion. And that goes on even today. So I hadn't really intended this to be part of our lesson, but it just unfolded that way. And basically it's an example, extreme example, as the Course says, of how we're using the crucifixion to continue to reinforce the illusion. Pain, suffering, sickness, death. You know what I mean, friend?
Makes sense. That makes sense to me. Yeah. It doesn't sound like something Jesus would do, is to give us something that would be like an arrow that we could like throw at people to like hurt people that say, oh, this was so bad that this happened to Jesus. Like, how could this have happened?
Yeah.
It must have been part of some kind of a divine orchestration where he was showing, teaching us one of the greatest lessons of all time, that he let himself, his physical body, be sacrificed, so to speak, but it wasn't really a sacrifice because he knew he was not this physical body. He knew that he was going on to heaven and eternal life.
And he knew that right from the beginning. He knew it. There's messages in the Bible that prove that. He came here to do this. He knew it. So if you can imagine what it would be like to sacrifice your body and go back to the most beautiful, joyful, clean, happy, well-adjusted, loving place that you couldn't even imagine, and leave this place behind you. It doesn't seem like a lot of sacrifice to me, sorry, but.
Well, it's all about what we were taught and understanding what it really means to reframe and refresh our perspective, to embrace what the truth really is, that Jesus was teaching. And so it's good.
Death and sin are conquered now and forever.
I guess they're conquered if we realize they're conquered.
Yes.
Well, it's only going to get better from here. The next lesson is really powerful too. And it does say here, in our next lesson, we will discuss the way of ascent from your present condition. Peace and joy and the sweet fellowship of the heavenly host be yours as you consider these truths. Nothing is impossible to him that believeth.
I love that.
Because if you don't have faith, then you're separating yourself from Jesus and you're in a separation consciousness, right? So
That's right.
So have faith and believe in these words.
And even if you do have faith and believe, but you still believe in the separation and you believe in the illusion, the shadow world that you're living in, and you give all your trust to that, you're still not in the right frame of mind to accept the power of who you truly are through Christ. Many people are in that condition.
Yeah.
But it's hopeful, how many times we've talked about this, friend, that when one is healed, they're not healed alone.
Right.
And that when you and I speak and we heal with each other, thousands are being healed with us.
That's what he's saying, is it's helping to lift the human race.
Mm-hmm. Out of the mess that we've made.
It's only a morning mist.
Mm-hmm. Imagine. Well, thank you for joining me today, friend, and thank you to our listeners. And as friend said earlier, we'll be exploring the third lesson, part 3, seek and ye shall find. So we're going to find even more next time.
Okay, well, have a good week till next time.
Thank you for joining me, friend.
You too.
Bye-bye.